Christina, is everyone on?
Yes, I believe everybody is out of the waiting room and I just shut the waiting room off. So now people can just join directly.
Okay, then I guess we should get started. Hi, my name is Diane Pereira and I'm the president of the Parent Teacher Student Association at New Providence High School. On behalf of the PTSA, the Middle School PTO, Saltbrook PTA, and AWR PTA, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the candidates who are running for the New Providence Board of Education this year and are participating in this forum. Thank you to the League of Women Voters who helped us quickly put this event together. Their website, which is on the agenda, is a wonderful source of information, so check that out. Thank you to Christina Yadlon, our Zoom moderator and Zoom guru. Thank you for your flexibility and your patience. And of course, I'm going to have a little plug. Please support your PTAs. Join, volunteer, come to meetings. Our meetings are an automatic audience with the admin and leadership of each of the schools. So please join us. And now we have Zoom options. And they are an invaluable source of information. And now I'd like to introduce Laura Engelhardt, who will be our moderator for this event.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Laura Engelhardt. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Berkeley Heights, New Providence, and Summit, and will be moderating tonight's Board of Education Candidates Forum. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy, and while we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our community strong. As a League of Women Voter member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one, which has a great impact on local, state, and national issues. And if you're interested about learning how to make a similar impact, I'd encourage you to visit our website. With our mission to promote informed voting, we're pleased to moderate tonight's event. We have 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the New Providence, New Jersey Board of Education, each for a term of 3 years. I'd like to thank the candidates for their cooperation and for giving us their time and attention today. Tonight's event, we will hear from all 4 candidates. We have Ms. Jennifer Killay, Ms. Amanda Morano, Mr. Ilya Mazen, and Ms. Mary Mizyukevich. They're kindly given me the pronunciations of their names, and please forgive me if I mangle anything. Under the rules of tonight's forum, all questions were required to be submitted in advance. So we ask members of the public that you remain on mute and you keep your videos off. If you select gallery view at the top of your Zoom meeting, you should be able to see all the candidates as well as the moderator and the timekeeper. For those in the community who are unable to attend tonight's forum, tonight's event will be recorded and posted on Saltbrook's YouTube channel as well as broadcast on New Providence TV at a later date. As you watch and listen to this debate, consider whether the candidates are being asked about your priority issues, and feel free to talk about the debate with your friends and family. Most importantly, remember to vote on November 3rd. It's your best opportunity to make your voice heard and to help the issues that affect us all. Before we begin the question round, each candidate will offer a brief statement discussing their qualifications. These statements will last up to 2 minutes. Then I'll ask each candidate a question. All candidates will have up to 1 minute to respond to every question. These questions were submitted in advance by members of the community to the PTA. If a candidate wants to rebut, they have up to 30 seconds for each rebuttal. The timekeeper will assist us by holding up a yellow card indicating time remaining at 30 seconds and a red card indicating the time to stop. After the question rounds, we will allot time for closing remarks by each candidate in the reverse order of the speaking of the opening statements, and they will have up to 2 minutes for their remark. I'm going to start the first question with Ms. Killay, who was selected at random to begin.
Hey, what's up?
Great. Thank you to the PTA and thank you to everyone for taking the time to listen. I'm Jen Killay and I have been a resident in New Providence for 13 years. My husband Brian and I moved from New York City without any kids, and today we're raising 2 kids here in what we call our home at New Providence. I have a sixth grade son and a first grade daughter, both attending AWR. I am committed to this town, and I really enjoy spending time helping with the schools. I've been a board member of the New Providence Education Foundation for over 3 years. And we're surrounded today with great candidates that are truly passionate about this town. But what makes me unique? Why I was drawn to this opportunity happened earlier this year. I co-chaired the marquee event for the New Providence Education Foundation, where we were celebrating our milestone of reaching $1 million for teachers' grants. And during that time, I had the opportunity to spend time with Dr. Michelli and a few other folks from the administration, and they talked about this 5-year strategic vision. And when they unveiled the video around this 5-year vision, I was blown away. It was bold, it was leading edge, it was going to fully transform the way our students learn and really make them so prepared for the modern world. And so I thought to myself, how is this small community going to do this? It's going to take a lot of work. And it occurred to myself that this is in my wheelhouse. I've spent over 20 years in the financial industry as a strategic relationship manager. So what does that mean? I'm responsible for bringing teams together, figuring out a plan, and working towards long-term goals and implementing them along the way while facing a lot of challenges. And I've learned through those years, it's so important to take those stakeholders, make sure that they buy into the plan and feel a part of the plan in order to achieve success. I think I can bring this skill set to this Board of Education seat. I'm super excited, and I've already have enjoyed and learned so much in this interim seat that I'm in, and I hope that I'm given the opportunity for the long term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mizukovich.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. Good evening to all the Zoomers out there. My name is Mary Badgley Mishakevich. I'm a lifelong pioneer. I attended Hillview School, which is now the Morris Jointure on Central Avenue. I attended Saltbrook School, Allen W. Roberts School. I'm a graduate of the New Providence High School. My children are also alumni and proud pioneers. I am a current member of the New Providence Board of Education, and I am seeking re-election. I have pursued my passion in giving back to this community that I live in. My biggest accomplishment has been serving the New Providence Board of Education, as this position is critical in shaping our youth to become young, productive adults in our global society. It has been my pleasure to be a part of the Board of Education and live in a unique community that always comes together for the benefit of our students. We are a community dedicated to excellence. So why would you re-elect me? I have 25 years of experience in our community, working to support children and young adults' growth and development. I gained immeasurable training experience through my service to numerous organizations such as the Junior League of Summit, the St. Andrews Preschool, the Saltbrook PTA, the High School PTA, the High School Athletic Booster, Crestview Swim Club, and the Summit YMCA. So what does this experience mean to you, the voter? There is no doubt I am prepared to continue the work that I have been an integral part of on the Board of Ed as the chair of the Personnel, Management, and Communication Committee and sitting on the Curriculum Committee. As a board member, I was involved in the formulation of the 2015-2020 strategic goals. As a result of those goals, our district implemented a robust STEM curriculum. We are up against unveiling our new district goals, 2020 to 2025. I have the unique perspective to understand where this district has been and where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mazin.
Thank you, and greetings, everyone. So a quick self-introduction. Our family moved to New Providence about 5 years ago. Our kids, Sean and Eileen, are at Roberts. And just because my wife, Tanya, and I have so much free time, we also have 3 rescues, 2 cats and 1 dog. We're a big soccer family. I've been coaching at the New Providence Soccer Club for 3 years. I never got a chance to play organized sport where I grew up, so it's very, very special to me that I can share my love of the game with my kids, their friends, and get all this incredible sport from our town. Work-wise, I'm a recovering management consultant. I spent years advising multinational companies in many industries, which is where I learned to tackle big problems, work with people across all walks of life. Today, I'm with Dun & Bradstreet, where I lead data science strategy and operations. And before all that, and before I came to the US, I served in the Israeli military. So my main objective as a board member is to prepare our children to thrive in the world that is changing faster and faster every single day. I am confident that their generation will face challenges that don't even have names yet. And they will not have the luxury of doing only one thing throughout their working lives and careers. So one, I'm very focused on hard skills, math, statistics, critical thinking, but also social and emotional development. I think kids today have many stressors that didn't even exist when we were growing up. Social media, cyberbullying, college admissions are ultra competitive today. And of course, we tragically lost several young people this summer. So the first order of business to me is creating a culture where students can openly talk about mental health, their issues, substance abuse. And there also should be an easy and welcoming entry points for them to access mental health and addiction counseling. So final thoughts, our kids are incredibly fortunate to belong to this wonderful school district. We have an engaged community. Everyone is committed to supporting our kids and giving them the best opportunities. And I would be absolutely honored to serve on the board and help move this important work forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morano.
Hi, to every Zoomer out there as well. My name is Amanda Morano. My family moved to New Providence from Jersey City in the summer of 1987 as I was entering second grade at AWR. I was part of the second class to go through the middle school and am also a proud pioneer, graduating class of 1998. After graduation from here, I attended Fairfield University with a double business major in international business and marketing, and graduated in 2002 and also met my husband, Pat. For the past almost 20 years, I have worked in Manhattan, building my career in advertising sales with a focus in news media, working for brands such as the Business Insider, Washington Post, Bloomberg, New Yorker, and The Economist. And after we had our first son, we began looking for a place to raise our children. And what was most important to us was finding a community that valued knowing who your neighbors were, but also providing the best education possible. I'm running for the Board of Ed because I've always believed, even despite this crazy year, that regardless of all of the antics that goes on the national and federal level, that having a voice and say in your local community is the most important election for everyone. I understand the importance and value that our board brings to the community as a whole, from monetary allocation of taxes to passing and implementing educational policy from the state level, and how we communicate with other town official organizations from the Town Council, Diversity Committee. And the board is truly supposed to be a representation of the full community, but specifically the voices of our families and students. I have two young sons, Patrick, who's 8 and is attending 3rd grade at Saltbrook, and Will, age 3, whom just entered pre-K. Their generation is going to be the most affected by many of the decisions that we're making today on their education over the next decade. And specifically areas that I'm passionate about are how they're utilizing technology in their learning to their social and emotional well-being. I've served on numerous boards, from the Fairfield University Alumni Board to the International Advertising Association Board, and most recently Moms Helping Moms. And I feel with my strong background in communications and brand building and understanding of technology, I could be a valuable asset, not only to the community, but a new voice to represent.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. If a rebuttal is requested, again, they'll have 30 seconds. The first question is, what is your vision for education in New Providence? And I'd like to start with Ms. Mazukovich.
Sure, thank you. So I mentioned in my opening a little bit about the 5-year strategic plan. So New Providence has always gone out to our community to help set our goals. And so this isn't it's not a one-person visionary statement. We get to collaborate with all our constituents, all our parents. And so as a result of that, we are able to develop our vision. And in New Providence, right now, our biggest issues that we are tackling in the next 5 years are social emotional learning curriculum in our district, as well as we're going to have to prepare and get ready for the new housing development and how many students that may impact our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, the same question. What is your vision for education in New Providence? I'd like to ask Mr. Mazin.
Thank you very much. So I think it's very helpful to think about this question kind of looking ahead. So I always throw out this little factoid that our children will spend most of their working careers in the second half of 20th century. So I think we really need to think what kind of intellectual, social, and emotional challenges our children will face in the workplace and throughout their adult lives in general. When it comes to intellectual stuff, we need to prepare them to work in the workplace and compete in situations where artificial intelligence is a real thing as opposed to what it is now. And in terms of social and emotional growth, I mean, just look about what COVID has done to our normal lives. Everything is changing very quickly, and I really think that we need to focus more on giving our kids the tools to be flexible, adaptable, be comfortable with rapid change. So to me, that's our goal.
Thank you. Ms. Morano.
Similar to what my two predecessors said as well, I do think that my two biggest issues that I see and across all age levels are how we're implementing different technology into learning. Right now, we're going on to, we're past 6 months, everybody's been working from home, learning from home, and at all different age levels. About 6 months ago, before when we were all allowed out of our homes and we would be in an actual room together, we were being told and advised not to allow our children to be on screens for such a long period of time. And now that's how they're learning the majority of time. And for me, I just look at it where what are different types of educational process could we be looking at? How can we be implementing this within the classrooms, but also how can we incorporate this in with families? And dovetailing nicely into that is the social and emotional learning. And I was impressed with Dr. Harvey's presentation at the board meeting on the 24th as to what we're planning on doing for the school. However, I think we should be able to take it a step further as we're blurring the lines between home and school and having parents incorporated.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
So I agree with what everyone said, and I really share the vision of our district's 5-year strategic plan. I think they really understand what needs to be done to be relevant for this Generation Z and to really prepare them for the skills that are going to be needed in all of these different industries that have gone through so much disruption. I agree with the social and emotional learning and those life skills, and really teaching not just about facts and figures, but teaching about critical thinking, collaboration, empathy. And I think we're making some good strides, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. And the vision needs to be fluid because it's a long-term vision and things are going to definitely change. No one would have ever expected what we've gone through this year.
Thank you. The next question that was submitted by a member of our community is the question, what do you feel the most challenging issue facing our district is today? And I'd like to address that to Mr. Mazin.
So, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that 6 months ago or 7 months ago, we would have been doing this very differently. Because of COVID, everything has changed. And I feel that kids, whether kindergartners, first graders, or kids in high school, this situation is clearly not normal, and it's hard on them. It's hard on kids in groups A, B, and C in different ways. So I think this is the biggest challenge. I think on the one hand, we need to sort of keep the sense of normalcy and help them cope emotionally with these unusual circumstances. On the other hand, we got to keep pressing with the normal curriculum and everything that we expected them to learn. So I think balancing those two needs is pretty challenging and will require a lot of thinking going forward. Thank you.
Ms. Morano.
I would also agree. I think the biggest impact that we're facing is what is the social impact and emotional impact of living through this current time? Children are much more adaptable than people give them credit for. And I see that every day with my 3-year-old, how he puts his mask on and walks out and he's fine. However, we are dealing with kids that are 3 all the way into seniors, and how this is affecting them from their home life into finding their own voices and being able to advocate themselves, and what they're going to be dealing with graduation, and are they set up with not only the educational skills that they had anticipated having because they had to change and learn in a different way, but also what are the emotional and skills and tools that they have to be able to deal with all of the ramifications from an emotional standpoint that they've been living with over the past few months.
Ms. Mizukovich.
Sure. I am going to echo a lot of those same sentiments. I think our biggest challenge right now is balancing the social emotional learning, but not only with our students, it's with our staff as well. We are rolling out a plan, grades pre-K through 12, and we just provided our staff with professional development. And this is really to help them have a document that they can refer to. And it also gives them guidance, not only for their students, but for themselves. And so I do know that the first part of their curriculum in the fall now is self-care. So we need to get our kids in check and our staff in check, because these times are just obviously unprecedented. So I think our biggest challenge is the social emotional learning, because we need to have that part controlled so that our students can be successful.
Thank you. The next question is, what kind of volunteer work have you done in the community and for the New Providence schools specifically? We'll start with Ms. Morano.
Within the schools specifically, I have been involved with the PTA. I have not been able to be as active because up until March 13th, I was commuting in and out of Manhattan, now that I'm here more. But within the New Providence community, my husband and I have both been very active with both of our sons in sports that they've been a part of, as well as everything from scouting. And within New Providence, I am also on the board of Moms Helping Moms, which is a 501c not-for-profit organization that helps women in need of having diapers and baby products in order to have a better living, which is something that we've instilled in our children, and my son knows all about it as well.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
I've spent most of my time, the big bulk of my time, my volunteer time, on the New Providence Education Foundation, as I mentioned earlier. The Education Foundation is responsible for helping teachers with fund grants each and every year. And as I mentioned, that foundation has raised over $1 million, which we celebrated last year. Some of the things that you may have seen in the classroom are the virtual reality Google glasses that some of the elementary school kids use, as well as the diversity books in each of the elementary school classrooms. And so it's been a great experience. We're really lucky to have something like that in our town that helps fund things that are outside the school budget.
Thank you. Ms. Mizukovich.
Sure. I mentioned my volunteer experience in my opening, and I guess the biggest commitment, besides being on the Board of Ed, was my experience at the Saltbrook School. I was the recording secretary, corresponding secretary, and I launched myself right into the president. And when you're in elementary school, there are so many activities. You have the book fair, you have mother-son bingo, you have the dance. You are in school as the president, overseeing all this fun arm of education. This PTA portion is really the fun. And so, but the other part on the PTA is I was able to sit in on the superintendent forums and meet Dr. Michelli and start seeing what the vision of our school district was. And that launched me into my position on the board. So my biggest commitment probably was the 6 years I spent at Saltbrook School. Oh, I did want to mention, since I'm not at a time, I had the opportunity to run this event in 2010. So 10 years ago, I was able to be part of the PTA that hosted this. So that was fun as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mazine.
Okay. Volunteer experience in our schools. I've done book fairs and various class events. Outside of schools, I mentioned my coaching experience with New Providence Soccer Club. I've been doing it 3 years. I coach my daughter's skill development team and my son's travel team. So my Saturdays are very, very busy and very hectic. But honestly, I grew up loving this game. I still love that game. So it's incredible that I get to do it with my kids and their best friends now. Do I need to have a pair of cleats and shin guards when I'm on the field with them? No. Do I love it? Yes. I love running around with them. It's really the best part of my weekend.
Thank you. The next question was around foreign language. Would you consider adding Mandarin Chinese as one of the second languages in middle school and high school? I'll direct this first at Ms. Mazukovich.
Sure, thank you. At this time, I would say that we have just implemented French, both now to 7th and 8th grade. That was a language that was pulled away because of budgetary problems. So I feel as though at this point, we're offering French, Spanish. Once you get to the high school, it's French, Spanish, Italian, Japanese, and Latin online. I think that if we are going to add any more foreign languages, it could be an online option at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider all those languages, especially Mandarin. It's something that is looked for in all different corporations and all different industries, having that second language. I think Mary has a great idea with the opportunity in this type of environment to offer it online. It's just finding the right teachers and determining what is it? Is it Mandarin? Are there others? And maybe taking a survey with the community.
Thank you. Ms. Morano.
I would love to be able to offer as many languages as anybody would be interested in taking. However, I think a lot of this always comes down to what could we afford in the budget. And I do think, and this day and age, the more languages you have in your arsenal, the better. But I would love to see the board and the school districts as a whole take a look from a monetary standpoint. Are there other avenues, such as perhaps doing an online option? Are there other corporations that we could consider partnering with that we could offer this to, not just high schoolers, but younger, and just trying to take a look from that regard. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to, unfortunately, if we can afford it and budgets.
Thank you. Mr. Mazine.
So two contradictory thoughts. First of all, China obviously is going to be a very important player going forward. So from that perspective, having Mandarin in our kids' arsenal is very important. On the other hand, though, I do wonder if we're going to get a buck for a buck if we do it. Mandarin is a very difficult language to learn, and learning it in isolation, I'm not really sure how effective the results are going to be. So I think I would mirror what Amanda just said. Perhaps we start with some sort of a trial program where we do online or Rosetta Stone and perhaps a little bit of some guided instruction, but I'm not really sure if it's going to be a very effective use of our students' time.
Thank you. There was another foreign language question that was asked by members of the community. How would you improve the foreign language component at the elementary level? My student is a recent graduate who cannot speak one sentence of Spanish, even after 7 years of weekly classes. We'll start with Ms. Calais.
I think the best approach to that is getting the feedback around exactly what are the issues and to address those. I don't know too much about the concerns within the elementary school around the language. It hasn't come up, at least for me in my conversations as of recent, but I think, collecting that feedback, and we're always looking to improve. And so just making sure we hear from the community and get the right feedback to make an informed decision.
Thank you. The next foreign language at the elementary level, Ms. Morano.
So I also graduated and cannot with, I think 7 years of Spanish, and I'm not fluent in it at all. So I fully appreciate that. To be really honest, I feel like with foreign language, a lot of times it comes to truly immersing yourself into the language. So having, the exposure at a younger age is definitely much more valuable in the learning process. But I think a lot of it, definitely needs to have bigger conversations from the community, understanding where their real issues are, the interest levels, and perhaps seeing if there is a home component that we would be able to implement or at least introduce to families if they feel that this is one of their bigger concerns in an area in which that they want to have their children become more fluent. But I think a lot of this comes to more research and development and bigger conversations.
Thank you. Mr. Mazine.
It's pretty funny. So in my answer to the previous question, I was trying to be diplomatic, but the truth of the matter is that we are where we are with Spanish. I don't think that many kids graduate from our school system being fluent in Spanish. So Mandarin was a little bit of a tall order. But I think, we need to look at things that do work, even they are non-traditional. Berlitz works, Rosetta Stone works. So I think we need to do a pretty robust assessment of what are the leading ways of teaching, whether it's Spanish or different languages, and go from there.
Thank you. Ms. Mizukovich.
Sure. So sitting as a board member and on the curriculum committee, I just want to let this parent know, at least from the board perspective, I have not heard about an issue at the elementary level regarding Spanish and maybe some issues. So I would suggest definitely what Jen mentioned. We would definitely need some feedback, talk to the building principal, and so that we can address this issue if it is an issue. So feedback would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. The next question that was submitted by a member of the community is, what are the candidates' views on assigning daily homework and the amount of homework currently being assigned? Family time is of the utmost importance. The evenings are times where most families have the opportunity to reconnect. With daily homework being assigned in classes, it's often difficult to find this time. Students are stressed, spending all evening studying with little time to relax and reconnect. Ms. Morano.
Did my son submit that question as my first question? We're going through a very unusual time, and I say unusual because, for a lack of a better term, I appreciate more than ever having more family time, and I understand that especially for older children, as stress levels are becoming a lot higher, their course loads are higher, and frankly, with remote learning more incorporated into how we're operating on a daily basis, the lines are blurred between home and school, just as they are with home and work for a lot of the parents. I believe the teachers are trying to do the best possible job that they can in keeping course load to be as immersive and as engaging as possible. And I do think, just having been able to view this for the past 3 weeks, we're still in a learning period right now as to what is working from the educational standpoint during the day versus not. And I think, frankly speaking, that, this is a bigger discussion that we have to have students, one, be able to advocate for themselves to their teachers as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mazine.
So I would really love to understand the facts about to really better grasp whether it's a significant problem in the community or if it's something that has a smaller magnitude. From what I'm seeing with my kids, I don't think that it's a huge problem, but of course, our experience is not representative of what is right for any other family. So, I think if this is being considered, if this is a question that came through, I think there may be a place for conducting a survey within the community to understand where we really are, whether it's too much or whether it's the right amount.
Ms. Mizukovich.
Yes. So assignment of homework, how it impedes on family time. Is it too much? Is it too little? Pre-COVID, I'm going to answer this question pre-COVID because I don't have a young student right now, going through what everybody is going through in terms of managing jobs and homework and dinner time and everything else at the house. So pre-COVID, my personal opinion is it is good practice for just for higher level education. When your children move on from elementary to middle to high school to college, this prepares them how to manage their time. And time management is huge and higher level at, higher education.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and especially during this time, because it's very individual. Everyone's adjusting, adapting to this COVID situation very differently. And I'm not sure if the student or the parent reached out to the teacher about this, but I feel like our teachers have been incredibly flexible, at least from my own experience, with trying to cater to the individual needs, just given the type of environment we're in. So I would encourage the student and the teacher and the parent to reach out to the teacher and see what can be done, because family time is important. And this is a tough environment for everybody, and everyone's adjusting differently.
Thank you. The next question concerned how the New Providence schools will approach getting to a 5 half-day school option, similar to the Summit Elementary School District. This question is first for Mr. Mazine.
Thank you. So first, I think it's very important to mention that unquestionably the board worked really hard to create the solution and the arrangement that we have today. I think they were dealt a very hard hand, and there were no perfect solutions. There was no solution that would be perfect for every single family. So what we have now is pretty flexible so from that perspective, I'm really appreciative of what the board has done. Whether the solution that we have in Summit is a better solution than what we have now, I'm not entirely sure. Again, I would go to a survey and look at the data.
Thank you. Ms. Mizukovic.
Yes, thank you. So I think it's very hard to compare ourselves with any other town. Like Mr. Mazin just said, the board and the district did work very hard to get the hybrid model, which works well here in New Providence. I don't think at this time we could go to 5 half days, because we are practicing 6 feet distancing along with masks, and we did not invest in any partitions. So this works well in New Providence, the model that we have just now in place.
Ms. Calais.
Yeah, I agree with Ilya and Mary. I think our hybrid model is important because when cases can pop up, we don't have to shut down an entire school, because we're keeping within that CDC and Department of Health protocol with the 6 feet distance and mask. And Summit, from what I understand, they have larger class sizes, larger room, larger space than we do, which may have given them the ability to do that. And so I think, at this point in time, the hybrid model is working. And I know that the board and that the school administration wants to get everyone in for as much class time as possible. That's the ultimate goal, but we're being really thoughtful about the impact to the entire community and making sure as cases do pop up, we don't have to impact more people than necessary.
Ms. Morano.
I find these types of questions to be a little precarious to answer, just because there really are no right answers in this. I think there's not one parent, there's probably not one teacher in the entire district that doesn't want to be back in school 5 days a week, whether it's a half day or a full day. I've actually applauded the way that the board and that the district has taken into consideration everyone's health, the infrastructure that we're dealing with, the class sizes that we're dealing with. And, first and foremost, I think we just have to make sure that we're just keeping everyone's health a priority and evaluate the safety on the numbers, and just kind of play with the deck that we were handed in our town and not looking at anyone else's.
Thank you. The next question is, if you had to choose between hiring more teachers to lower class sizes or hiring more counselors, therapists, social workers to deal with non-academic issues, which would you choose and why? We'll start with Ms. Calais.
That's a great question and a really hard choice because I think we value both greatly. And so I think we would need to think about that some more to really evaluate the needs, because right now with the social emotional learning, and right now our class sizes are okay. When you look at the demographic study, we have actually they've flattened a little bit. It's not in the growth mode that it was when you look at some of the projections. It's not ideal, I know, but it's not as much of an issue as it was a few years ago. But again, I don't know. I think we would love more teachers and love more counselors, and I would need more information to figure out what is the right choice for that dilemma.
Ms. Marano.
I mean, I'd love to say split the difference and hire both. But the reality is, it would be amazing to hire more teachers, lower the class sizes, because then you would be able to have more of a communal feeling within all of the classes where you could also deal with the social and emotional. However, we also then have to take a look at the infrastructure of where we would put these teachers and these classes. This is definitely an area that the board has been facing and talking about for years, and is going to be one of the biggest issues to probably be facing us in addition to COVID and everything in the next 5 or 10 years. I think for the immediate future, I think having more therapists within the school and having that counseling would be a lot better for the immediate time. But in the long term, as we're building out infrastructure plans and we're transitioning post-COVID, I think that it is something that we should take a look at from teaching and how we should be formulating classroom and class assignments and, what the needs of the students will be.
Ms. Mizukovich.
So I 100% agree. This is a tough one. Would love to do both for sure. What I can comment on, I guess, and I'm trying to figure out which one I would choose, and I don't think I can. Although, while we're learning the Gen Z students, we are starting to think about, the higher level thinking and just the way the classroom is going to look. So we're going to have all new innovative ideas, and so maybe teachers to help us move along this generation. And then as for counselors, because of our social emotional, I know last year in the district, we did hire another crisis counselor. And I do truly believe that you almost cannot have, it would be great to have a counselor, one student, one counselor, but we know that's not going to happen. So it is a great question.
Thank you. Mr. Mazin.
Assuming that we had extra funding, and that's obviously a big assumption, I would say pre-COVID, split the difference, hire more teachers and counselors as the funding allows, because every child is different. Different kids have different individual needs. So for some, having a smaller class size would really allow them to open up and blossom in that environment. For others, some more individualized interaction with counselors is more efficient. But during COVID, I would say, it's a tough environment emotionally, it's a tough environment socially, that I would allocate more resources toward mental health and counselors.
Thank you. The next question is, how will you be an advocate for children with IEPs, 504 plans, and IHPs, individualized health plans, children with special needs, learning disabilities, and health problems? Ms. Mizukovich.
Sure. I think that our district does a very good job with the special services run by Dr. Harvey. We have several case managers. As far as, I think it's a tough topic because the students have such individual needs. And so they are individualized plans. And so each student does have a different criteria of education. And I think that we do like to keep these students in our district. We have implemented the inclusionary program. We love to run programs that will benefit all of our students. So we just, have to let our professionals and the IEP department and our case managers work with us so that we can get the best outcome for those students.
Thank you. Mr. Mazin.
I forget who said that, but I heard a great quote that a school district can be evaluated based on the quality of accommodations that kids with special needs have. And I completely agree with that. I think we need to, whatever it is that we need to do to ensure that kids in those programs have the same quality of experience and education needs to be done. My mother is a speech therapist, so for decades she's been working with kids who struggle. And I've heard countless stories from her about how much that little bit of extra touch means for those kids. So, whatever we can do, we must do it.
Ms. Morano.
This topic is definitely near and dear to my heart. We've been through this process with one of my children, so I understand the very long and winding road that it takes to navigate on just, where to even go for help. So number one, I would say in regards to how to be an advocate, I think communications from the board and from the school district on how parents should even begin this path is something that we can work on as a school district, just in general, whether I'm on the board or not. Having people become more familiar with the process, what they're supposed to do, and really just be able to help, because at the end of the day, there are resources, but people don't understand them, and they don't understand, frankly, the questions they're supposed to ask until it's too late. And, it will just make things a lot easier in regards to different community organizations that they could be set up with, having, different parent buddy groups to be able to help them navigate this process, as well as then also looking into different programs and different options.
Ms. Calais.
It's an incredibly important topic, and I would absolutely be an advocate. I think understanding the communication process around this, because there are a lot of individualized programs, and is important to make sure that that is being done the right way. And then also listening to ideas of other districts, how they deal with this, and if there's anything that maybe we haven't considered in the past to be considered going forward.
Thank you. The next question is, kids who would love to take visual arts electives in high school are often shut out and only manage to get the one class they need to graduate and nothing more. What do you see as the role of the arts in education, visual arts, practical arts, music, and drama? In many ways, though prioritizing STEM classes seems like it's important, the visual arts in particular get left behind. What would you do to support those kids interested in visual arts and help them find ways to pursue their dreams? We'll start with Mr. Mazin.
Thank you. So it's funny, actually, I can actually really sympathize and empathize with the situation. When I was growing up, I went to what at the time was arguably the best high-tech or STEM high school in Israel, and we had zero art on the curriculum. So I feel like to some extent, we did so much math and physics, which was great, and coding, but I do feel that we missed out on an opportunity to study visual art, music. So, as when it comes to our schools, I'm sure there's some consideration of funding allocation that we need to look at, but unquestionably, visual arts, music, it's such an important part of the human existence that I think it's important that we create opportunities for the kids who are interested in those opportunities.
Ms. Morano.
I think arts in the schools are probably one of my biggest, tugs on my heartstrings, because I benefited so much from it, just because it's an amazing avenue for people to be able to express themselves, whether it's through music, art, entertainment, or any sort of, painting or any medium in that regard. I think we're very fortunate as a school district to have so many different avenues with a thriving music program in the high school and exposing everyone all the way from the elementary school levels on up. I do think it goes back to, though, communications in regards to allowing parents to know the different options that they have, being able to talk with their kids to find out, is this an area that they're interested in exploring, and trying to also encourage them with different ways to incorporate it into their homes. So when they do come into the schools, whether they're in the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, that they know what they're looking for and that they feel comfortable and able to express themselves.
Ms. Calais.
what I've heard is that, New Providence does a really great job when it comes to this. So that's surprising to me to hear that there's people being shut out. I would be interested to understand why that's happening and if there's any way that we can work to figure out, creating another class, hiring another teacher around this. This is important. And I know that so many people have talked about the people who've attended New Providence in the past, how greatly they benefited from the performing arts programs.
Ms. Misiukovic.
Sure. I just want to echo a few of Jen's same comments with regards to I was not aware, or the board is not aware of being shut out, similar to not maybe knowing about the Spanish issues at the elementary school. But I did want to just comment on the music, performing arts, fine, practical and visual arts. We just recently hired a new department head. Mr. Ken Hess did oversee music and performing arts. And now we're going to be splitting music and performing arts to Mr. Ken Hess, and we're going to take the fine, practical and visual arts and have a new department head. So hopefully that will help in terms of looking at curriculum, making sure students aren't shut out. My son was very involved in the practical arts and in the STEM program. And I have to say, I think our curriculum is amazing with the drawing and graphic designs and painting and photography and sculpture and our music program. I'm sure everybody here in the audience, I can't let this evening go without me mentioning about the band. Sorry.
Thank you. Please describe your beliefs around standardized test preparations and the extent to which it should be incorporated into the curriculum. Do you believe anything should change in the New Providence schools regarding test prep? We'll start with Ms. Morano.
Standardized test prep, I think just as a whole, is probably going to be reevaluated on a national level, especially coming out of the situation that we're living with right now, where you have colleges that are waiving SATs and ACTs. And today I just found out my third grader all of their standardized testings are going to be canceled. So I think this is one of those things where at the end of the day, we have to just constantly evolve and see what's out there, see what colleges and what other communities are doing, what the standardized testing boards are looking for, and frankly, trying to figure out, along with everyone else in the state, what is going to be best for our students. And I think coming out of, the current COVID world that we're living in right now, perhaps standardized tests might not be the biggest priority that we need to be focusing in on, rather, education and our social and emotional well-being of our children.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
I couldn't agree more with everything that Amanda said. We should absolutely reevaluate the standardized testing and take that focus and put it on the life skills with the social and emotional learning, and better prepare our students for the real world. I think that's going to better prepare them in terms of learning about critical thinking and empathy and resiliency, and really focusing on that emotional intelligence. So I think I'm in favor of reevaluating those standardized tests.
Ms. Misiukovic.
Sure. I don't know if I can come up with many comments other than what has been stated. I do think that at the higher education, I do know many colleges that are going to be going ahead and waiving the standardized testing, the ACT and the ECT and SAT for getting into colleges. At the elementary level, I do remember pre-COVID, our teachers did a very nice job preparing our kids for the testing that was coming, in terms of, putting that into their curriculum, giving those kids breaks, getting them just test ready. But I do think the whole landscape of testing is now going to change, and I can't agree with Jen anymore. I think it's time to focus on, parts of our students that are going to make them better global citizens and better, better prepared to handle the great wide world out there as it's changing so rapidly.
Mr. Mazie.
So I'm a little bit conflicted about this one. On the one hand, the only thing that standardized test is one's ability to take a standardized test. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, I always want to step back and think about what helps our kids thrive and as they progress through high school, college, adulthood. So today, as is, standardized tests are a very important part of this whole process. So I think insofar that remains, so schools absolutely should have good programs to prepare the kids. In part because not all families can afford private programs that do that, and in part, again, if this is what's going to help our kids thrive and succeed, then we should very seriously work with it.
Thank you. The next question is, as a Board of Education member, how will you influence making New Providence school districts competitively ranked? Ms. Misiukovic.
Sure. So I think being competitively ranked also, I think of how, student success. How are you going to measure that? How are we going to stay in the game? And that's always a really tough question. And I know some people, like the rankings and don't like the rankings. But the one comment I want to make is that New Jersey Monthly Magazine does come out with the rankings, but the one aspect of that is the metric that they use. One of the metrics that they use is they look at the New Providence students and see if they are still in college 18 months from when they left us. And I think that's a really good marker to measure, how our students are doing in the higher education. And that to me is a great measure of success.
Thank you, Mr. Mazine.
Couldn't agree with Mary more. Whatever it is that you measure, that's the thing that ends up being managed. So I think we really need to understand how those rankings are created and structured. And I believe there's not just one set of rankings, there are different methodologies. And look, so yes, we have to balance between making sure that our schools are well ranked, but at the same time, we really need to understand what we can do to provide our kids with the best quality of education.
Thank you. Ms. Morano.
I think the competitive rankings it's a double-edged sword because, a lot of the schools, if you look at them, that are highly ranked, a lot of them are specialized schools. And, you really can't take into account smaller schools like New Providence that can offer a vast array of music, arts, STEM, language arts for, just one town. So I would look to see, number one, what rankings is it that we're finding most important, but also at the end of the day, what's really most important to our children? And I think a lot of that is, getting into maybe not necessarily getting into a college that, is, within the top tier. However, what are the careers that are going to be preparing them for the future? And are we actually giving them that education and that foundation from our STEM programs to our arts programs, and also just telling them about the different options that are out there and making them much more socially viable and emotionally viable citizens.
Thank you. Ms. Calais.
I do think that if we are able to implement that 5-year strategic plan very well, that is going to transcend our community, transcend our district, and really make it competitively ranked. I think there's a lot of value to think about how do we define success, and if that's about college acceptances, and to Mary's point about staying in college 18 months afterwards. But I also think it comes down again to that emotional intelligence, and I know we're making some progress around that, but how do we measure kids around emotional intelligence? Because that is something that is really important when they enter the real world. So how do we teach them about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management? I think trying to figure out a way to measure that will just make them more resilient and help them with their IQ and everything else thereafter.
Thank you. The next question is, if you were to give our current superintendent a letter grade on his leadership in our district, what grade would you give him and why? Mr. Mazine.
So I'm a tough grader, so you know, A plus is out of the question by default. But honestly, I think at the very least, since COVID started, I think he has done a great job. He has communicated very frequently, very clearly and openly with parents about all the challenges that and the big decisions that he was faced with. He was okay communicating, even though he didn't have everything figured out at the time yet, which I thought was great. And again, I think, you know, there's no perfect solutions when this thing started. So we managed to end up with a solution that is quite workable and works for many families, flexible. So, you know, I think he did a good job.
Ms. Mazukovich.
Sure. So I am on the board, and I know Dr. Michelli now for the 6 years I've worked with him. I'm chair of the personnel, so I have reviewed him. So I don't want to be biased on that, but what I want to say is with regards to COVID, I think everybody on this call tonight will remember that New Providence was the first district to take our kids worried about our staff and our teachers, our staff and our students, and get them in the remote learning setting. We were the first district in New Jersey to do that. He has led our district. He's made unwavering decisions. I would give him, to answer the question, I would give him an A+. He has led us. The communication is bar none. Everybody is on the same page at the same time. He has a great leadership team that he formed. I can't say enough. I think we're very lucky.
Ms. Calais.
I like to think of myself as a hard grader too. So I don't give out A pluses freely, but he definitely gets an A. You know, his leadership is one of the reasons why, you know, I feel the need to even explore this potential opportunity. Mary's right. We were the first school, I believe, in New Jersey to close down. So he's making quick, decisive, thoughtful decisions, and our reopening plan, making sure the right stakeholders are on board. All of our teachers felt part of it was so important. It's part of the teachers not feeling like they were considered is the reason why a lot of other communities did not open. So I think he's done a tremendous job. Our town is highly desirable, and it has a lot to do with the school district that he's been responsible for.
Ms. Morano.
I think, you know, I'd like to say I'm a hard grader as well. I would definitely give, you know, a solid A, not just for the COVID response, which, you know, everybody has mentioned, but, you know, it was great to be able to be one of the first districts to be able to be decisive and take our students and make them virtual from the beginning. I also think just, you know, his leadership over the past few years, I've only been exposed to it really for about 3 or 4 years with my kids being in the school district, but, you know, he seems to have the direction moving in the right way, from continuously reevaluating and updating the curriculum every 5 years to working with different community organizations, as well as taking a look at different infrastructure deals that we're going to have to be taking a look at in the future. So, you know, I think that we're definitely a very fortunate district to have leadership like that, and to also have a relationship with the board, the teachers, and the administration and the staff. I think that really says a lot, especially in this day and age.
Thank you. The next question is, how many Board of Education meetings have you attended in the last 2 years? Ms. Calais.
So I've attended, I want to say maybe around between 8 and 10 over the past few years. And the reason why is because I've been on the Education Foundation, and Dr. Michelli and we also have a Board of Education liaison attend those meetings with us. So every month we would get an update from the board, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Ms. Morano.
I would say probably about maybe 10 to 12. I tried to go to as many of the strategy session meetings and have been in person, and then I was basically zooming into all of the rest of them over the course of the past few months. And it's really one of the reasons that I wanted to throw my hat in the race here, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm one of those people that I'm not going to stand up and complain unless I'm going to raise my hand and help and try and be part of the solution. And I see a lot of different opportunities that are going to be here for my own children, but in the community that affect everybody, whether or not you have kids in the school. And, you know, I just think that everybody should be attending their board meetings, their town council meetings more and more, just to have a better understanding as to what's going on within your own community.
Mr. Mazine.
A few, probably not enough, but a few. And the ones that I did attend, I was always very impressed with the quality of dialogue and the issues that were being discussed.
Ms. Mizukovich.
Sure. So I obviously have attended probably 95% of the meetings in the last 6 years. I did just want to make a quick shout out for some unintended consequences as a result of COVID. At our board meetings, we don't typically get a fan base, but since we've been Zooming, we have had so many more participants, so many more residents and community members and families on Zoom. So I think that's a great, unintended consequence in the positive. I also think that the Zoom, even for back to school nights. So I just want to give if you could make it one shout out for COVID, this Zoom has allowed people that maybe otherwise could not get to a meeting, come to a meeting, which has been great.
I think we have time for one, maybe two questions. It depends. So the last potential question is, what changes would you propose to improve the relationship between the board and the public? Ms. Morano.
One of the reasons that I think one of my attributes I feel that I would be able to help is improving the communication structure with the public. And I've been very impressed with the communication strategy that has been rolled out over the past year. And I think we can take this a step further. I'd love to see the committees be able to have a bit more information being put out there specifically. So there's one area for people, if they have an issue, trying to figure out who they should be going to, as opposed to just coming to a board meeting stating their case, and hopefully able to have a little bit more solutions and an action plan put in. And I also think one thing I would love to see is if the board could actually establish a student advisory panel made up of high schoolers and recent grads to be able to have a voice in different emotional issues, curriculum issues, and anything from a tech perspective that they're planning on implementing into anything that would affect the children.
Ms. Calais.
You know, in my interim seat right now, I feel like I am very approachable. I love talking to people. And so I would encourage people to to reach out if they have any questions to me or any of the other board members. They're also very approachable. I think going forward, to Mary's point, the fact that these are now on Zoom, and one of the silver linings from COVID is to do this through Zoom and not have to worry, especially for the parents with younger children, to get a babysitter and attend these meetings. I do like Amanda's idea about the advisory council. I know we've had student representatives over the past few months come and give an update from the high school, so I think we could take that to another level. But I think it is incredibly important for the board to have a great pulse of what's going on in the community and to have an open door policy.
Ms. Mizukovich.
Can I ask you to read the question one more time?
Sure. What changes would you propose to improve the relationship between the board and the public?
Okay. It's a great question because there's been so many initiatives in the last year that have been great. And I guess I do want to comment on the district communication plan that we have rolled out. I feel like we're in the new century here. We have a new Facebook page and Twitter feed and website and district app. So I think that I'm not really answering the question in terms of changes. I think that we have done so much, and now in light of COVID and trying to get our kids back in school, I think there's just so much going on. But I am pleased to see the district's new communication coordinator and all that she has rolled out for us.
Mr. Mazine.
So I'm very keen on one particular part of the community, the students. So I would very seriously consider adding a non-votive representative non-voting representative to the board. I know that some towns in New Jersey have already done that, so I would look into that. From everything that I've learned in my career, if you have a chance to talk to a customer for 15 minutes, you will learn more than from a month of desktop research or internal meetings. And in this case, the students are our customers. So I would love to have a much more direct representation.
Okay, I think we have time for one final question before our closing statements. The last question of tonight's forum will be, how has the school board adapted to changing demographics of our town over the past decade? How do candidates see this going forward? Ms. Killay.
I heard someone talked about this at a meeting a few months ago, and I think they've done a lot. I know they've done a lot of work around the transgender policy, and it's something that we're always looking at in terms of just making sure we have a good pulse of the community. So I feel like that's an important item that gets discussed quite frequently, and always room for improvement depending on what's being brought up in the town, and just within the student population.
Ms. Misiukovic.
Sure. I do think Jen did touch upon, as we watch the demographics change, we also have to look at our policies constantly and update those and make those changes as our student population changes. And so we just have to keep a pulse on how the town has changed, because I know in the 35 years I've been here, it has changed quite a bit. So we have to just continuously monitor that and then update our policies to accommodate it.
Ms. Morano.
Can I ask you to restate the
Sure. How has the school board adapted to changing demographics of our town over the past decade? And how do you see this going forward?
I think just as a society in general, there have been a lot of different adaptations. I mean, I grew up in this town and I only moved back about 8 years ago. So I've seen the changing demographics and just different policies and just the way that the town acts as a whole. I think moving forward, I would like to see the board continue to bridge and continue to build on their relationship with the town council, but with the diversity committee, the alliance, the police force, and try and tackle everything together to truly get a better understanding and be on the same page as to what the demographics really are, what that means to the changing township and what that looks like as a whole. And, are we providing the right services? Are we providing the right talking points? And just, are we, just how we can build everything out as a full community, not just with the school system, but as a whole. And perhaps the school system could be one of the leading forces on that.
Mr. Mazin.
So I have a second grader at Roberts and a fourth grader. And I have to say, one silver lining of COVID has been that I have been able to see much more just by the virtue of being right next to them in the office, to see much more and to hear much more. And I've been very impressed with the curriculum and how it doesn't shy away from dealing with difficult and challenging issues, which I think is wonderful. That being said, of course, the demographics in our town and the country are changing very quickly. The issues are evolving. So it's very important not to, sort of declare victory. I think it's important to stay on top of these issues as they evolve and continue updating curriculum accordingly.
Thank you. That concludes our round of questions submitted by the community. We'll move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide a closing, and we'll proceed in the reverse order of the opening statements, which means we'll start with you, Ms. Morano.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone this evening, from the League of Women Voters to the PTAs and to my fellow candidates and to all of the Zoomers that have joined in. I stated in my opening remarks that, I truly believe that being involved in your local community, from the Board of Ed to the Town Council, and really exercising your right to vote there, are one of the most important parts of any election cycle. I personally have benefited throughout my entire life from having the good fortune of being raised in this town and, within this community and attending our schools. And since I've been able to build up my career working with a very diverse group of people, personalities, and backgrounds in different brands. And one of the ways that I have found success is just building on my communication skills and understanding that a conversation will go 10 times farther if there's actual listening on both sides. And it's the only way to be able to strategize and come up with a solution. I have young children that are just starting out their educational paths, and I'd like to be an advocate for them, but also just for all of the children in this town and families, as we are all navigating this new world where we're taking a look, as I said before, with how we're integrating technology on a day-to-day basis, dealing with their social and emotional well-being, and just preparing them for fruitful lives after they leave. And just taking a look at where I think I could be of use and be an asset, and where I'd love to see the board head in the future is continue to build out their communication strategy to better engage with different town organizations and town relationships, and to also forge just stronger ties within the community. I do feel very passionately about forming the student advisory committee, because at the end of the day, it's always one thing to listen to just the parents to understand what they think their children need, but it's another thing to have an understanding about what their children need, what they need themselves. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mazin.
So I think this is my 12th Zoom meeting today, and this is by far the smoothest meeting that has run without any issues. So to pull that off during COVID, thank you very much to all the organizers. This is a wonderful opportunity to share our thoughts. And since this is a forum on education, I cannot not throw out a quote from Carl Sagan. The quote that I went with this time is, "I'm often amazed at how much more capability and enthusiasm for science there is among elementary school students than among college students." So the world is an unbelievably interesting place, and we're only starting to scratch the surface and understand how things really work. Earlier today, I talked about how our kids' generation will face challenges that don't even have names yet. Well, they will also have tools and knowledge that we cannot even imagine. We're discovering things that 10 years ago would have sounded like science fiction. So on the face of it, there's never been a more exciting time to be a student. And yet, like Carl Sagan said, by the time kids graduate from high school, that pure joy of learning something new, discovering an exciting idea is often lost. And I'm not just talking about New Providence by any stretch of imagination. I think this is true for, any teenager in general. So it's all about getting good grades, getting into a good school. So, surely we're doing something wrong here. So I think, we have two challenges and we have to move on two parallel tracks. First, there's plenty of urgent matters that must be addressed immediately in mental health, substance abuse, but we also need to figure out how to make learning fun again. We have to create an environment where at least once a day, a kid will say something like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is really cool." And it's a very hard problem. I most certainly don't have a recipe for how to solve it, but we have a lot of smart, dedicated people in our schools, the teachers, the counselors, the principals, and a lot of smart people on the board. So I'm confident we can get there and be honored to help.
Ms. Misiukovic.
Sure, thank you. I just want to thank the organizers again. I want to thank the families and any of the community members that have had the chance to Zoom in. I do think this type of forum is very helpful, and I wish all the candidates, the best of luck. If I'm reelected, which I hope to be, I would like to just continue the work alongside our administration and carry out our district's new mission, which is to prepare our students academically for their pursuits, to be productive, empathetic, and global citizens. I just want to share that almost 99% of the New Providence students do pursue higher education. It could be a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, military. This statistic does not happen by accident. We have a very strong administrative team and leadership. We have great staff, and we have great students, and they all work together. And I will work closely with our team to ensure the implementation of the new SEL curriculum. And also critical this year, I'd like to work alongside the board as we deal with the potential development from the sale of the Bard property and the implications that it's going to have on our schools. I am your candidate to continue the culture of excellence in New Providence. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Ms. Calais.
Thank you, everyone, for all the organizers, for everybody coming, zooming in today after a long day and taking time to listen to us. It has been, we're all going through a really emotional and challenging year, and so we appreciate the time. I hope you'll consider me for a long-term seat on the board for a few reasons. I'm a mom juggling hybrid school models and remote working, just like many of us. I'm so passionate about New Providence. I am a pioneer now at heart, and I want to make sure that this continues to be the best place to live and raise a family. And, you know, I really do believe I can take the skills that I've acquired throughout my career as a strategic relationship manager and bring those to the board to solve all of these problems that we talked about today. Maybe not problems, but just issues. There's so much change going on in this world. And I really would love the opportunity to take a stab at that and implement and see that 5-year strategic vision come to fruition. So thank you again, and everybody take care.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for participating in tonight's forum, especially the 70 plus people from the community who dialed in to listen, as well as the candidates and the organizers. And to remind everyone that we're facing a very important election this November, more important than most as our nation finds its way through difficult and dangerous times. One of the more popular beliefs is that voting doesn't matter, that special interest groups and big businesses have all the power, and that the individual has no control over either government or politics. But that's not correct. This election is about you. That's right, your family, your healthcare, your job, your environment, your civil liberties, you. Participate in your government. Let your voice be heard by exercising your right to vote on November 3rd. Please take the next step and vote and demonstrate that our democracy is vibrant and alive. Thank you. So for anyone who's still on, thank you for coming. This event will be broadcast on the Saltbrook YouTube channel, as well as rebroadcast by New Providence Television. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good weekend. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.